I was hurrying home from work. It was already dark and bitterly cold. December, after all. I worked in one city and lived in another, so I had to commute by commuter train. Mornings to work, evenings back home. The ride took just under an hour. It was Friday, and I was in high spirits. I climbed up to a deserted platform and waited for the train. Not a soul. The platform was out on the edge of town by an industrial zone, where, as a rule, there were never many people. And tonight it was completely empty. I pulled out my phone and started poking around online. The train slipped in so quietly it startled me, and I was pleasantly surprised it had showed up a full 5 minutes early. Doesn't happen often. That only added to the good vibes, and I practically hopped into its open doors. I was eager to warm up in the heated car. It had to be 25 below out there. As soon as I stepped into the warm car, I could feel my mood kick up another 10 points. The car was absolutely empty, too. Sit wherever you want. Perfect. I'd be home soon, and ahead lay 2 full days off, and I had a ton of plans. No sooner had I settled in than the train started rolling and picking up speed. I went to get back online, but no such luck. Every kind of connection on my phone cut out at once. I didn't expect such a nasty trick from my faithful Samsung. 2 SIM cards, both out of network. I rebooted, same result. Whatever. That little annoyance couldn't ruin my mood. I took out my headphones, put on an audiobook, and leaned back to wait for the conductor. A monotone voice droned in my ears, and I dozed off. When I woke, one thought flashed through my head. Did I miss my stop? My heart started pounding. I checked the time. I'd been riding for about an hour. My station should be next. But the train kept barreling along without slowing. And outside it was night. A moon and forest. Endless forest on both sides. The car was still empty. I started to feel uneasy. I looked up at the electronic scrolling display. Blank. I checked the phone again. Still no signal. Fine, I thought. I'll head up through the cars and ask someone what the last stop was. I shoved my phone and headphones into my pocket, stepped into the next car empty. Kept going. I passed maybe 5 dim cars. No one. My eye fell on the emergency call button. I went up and pressed it. A savage screech and hiss blasted my eardrums from the speakers. I actually jumped back. My thoughts were racing. I had no idea what to do. I looked at the emergency brake handle. It had been ripped off. My right hand rose to scratch the back of my head, and that's when I remembered I'd been wearing a hat. I'd left it on the seat in the car I boarded back at the station. I hurried back to get it. On the way, I noticed all the emergency brakes were missing. That only made me more anxious. If I'd known what was waiting for me on the way back to my car, I wouldn't have gone. But I didn't know. I got 3 cars closer to the tail, stepped into the next one, and from the opposite end of the car, it entered. The instant I saw it, I froze in the doorway. A cold sweat broke over me and my knees nearly buckled. Some kind of rasp tore out of my throat. It was immense, both tall and wide, and it came toward me on huge bare feet. The feet were shaped like human feet, only the size. Each one was as big as a child's sled. One dusty lamp burned in the car, and like a moon, it lit up a scene so eerie it felt like a dream. The thing's arms were enormous. Its shovel-sized hands reached the floor. Each finger was as thick as my forearm, and it had to hunch to clear the car's ceiling. A massive belly hung over its pants. The mutant wore a conductor's uniform, huge to match him, but seams split where the body burst against them. The uniform was filthy and torn. A big, battered leather conductor's bag hung from a strap over one shoulder. But the worst was what sat on those shoulders. A huge bald head, A map of scars, eyeless, the lid sewn shut with thick mattress stitches. The mouth was so large you could have fit a whole medium watermelon in it. The monster moved forward slowly, feeling along every seat with those great paws. It searched the car with care. Under the seats themselves, even the luggage racks. It muttered unintelligibly, snorted, grunted, and wheezed. Every so often I could make out a few growled words. "Show your ticket," followed by, ticket, show your..." The car lurched, and my paralysis broke. I spun around and bolted. I ran through maybe 10 cars or 15 before a figure to my right flashed past in a seat. My brain didn't register it right away, and my legs, terrified, wouldn't obey the order to stop. So I blew through to the vestibule and only there, by sheer will, forced myself to halt. I turned and looked back. A man was dozing by the window about midway down the car. I rushed to wake him. When I grabbed his shoulder, he opened his eyes. "Run, we're dead if we stay here. There's a mutant," I shouted, panic rising. "Ah, so you met the conductor," the passenger said with a bitter smirk. I was taken aback by how calm he was. I opened my mouth to say something, but the words tangled up for good. "Don't worry. Sit. I'll explain," the stranger offered. His steady tone worked on me. My legs, heavy as cotton, folded, and I sat across from him. He went on. "There are 10 or 12 cars between us and the conductor. As you probably noticed, he's blind and moves very slowly. It takes him about 20 minutes to feel out a whole car, the vestibules, and squeeze into the next one. So he'll be here in about 3 hours. That gives me time to tell you what's going on." "What is going on?" I blurted the first thing that came to mind. "My name is Georgi Alexandrovich. Just call me Uncle Jorah. I'm a passenger on the ghost train, and now you are, too." I caught my breath and took a better look at my companion. He was about twice my age, around 60, intellectual looking, with a small graying beard, a slightly rumpled dark hat, and a dark overcoat that looked a little rumpled too. "Why did you call it a ghost train? And when is my stop?" I pressed him, trying to pick the most urgent questions out of the swarm in my head. "Your stop won't come. This train exists in a different dimension relative to our world," Uncle Jorah said sympathetically, then continued. "It'll be hard to grasp right now, but I'll try. Here's the situation. We've slipped into a parallel dimension. This train sometimes stops at stations and takes on passengers. It picks them up from our world, pulls them over into this one. Always just a single passenger. And there's no way out of it back into our world." "How's that?" I asked, skeptical. "Look out the window. What do you see?" "It's dark," I said. "Exactly," he confirmed. "It's always night here, and the train races through endless winter taiga, trees on both sides, an infinite ocean of evergreens, and bitter cold. I've been riding for more than a month, though time here is a slippery thing. Nothing changes outside. Every so often there's a station abandoned, deserted, somewhere in that taiga. After the train stops there, a new passenger appears. At the last station, you boarded." "Why didn't you get off then?" I asked. "Anyone who steps out gets left on an abandoned platform in the frozen taiga of this strange world, and dies, either from the cold, or..." He fell silent. "Or what?" I whispered. "You saw the conductor?" he asked. "Now, imagine what kinds of monsters live in that forest. This train is like a check valve. It lets people in from our world. But how to get back, I don't know. It all felt like nonsense or some cruel trick. I had boarded a train this evening to go home and ended up God knows where. No signal, No way out. But there had to be some way. Listen, if we keep going forward through the train, we could reach the locomotive. There'll be an engine crew, I reasoned. It's futile, my companion cut me off. First, I shudder to think what the engine crew look like here. Second, the train is endless, or rather, it has no beginning. How can that be? I was baffled. Don't forget, my friend, we're in another world. Our rules don't apply. I've been moving forward through the cars for over a month. The conductor keeps driving me on. There's no beginning to it, and it ends right behind him. When he passes through a car, that car disappears, as if it dissolves in the air. Who is the conductor? I asked. One of this world's natives, he explained. This place is inhabited by mutants, each one built for a particular task. Besides the conductor, there are maintenance workers, ticket clerks in station offices, even law enforcers. All of them are extremely aggressive, and to them, we're just food. I saw the conductor eat German. He grabbed him in his paw like a pastry, bit off the head first, then swallowed the rest whole. My legs still go weak when I think of it. German who? I breathed. German became a passenger a couple of days after me, Uncle Jorah began. I count days by my wristwatch, no sun here. He came up with a theory. You could get out if you got behind the conductor. So he decided to hide under a seat, hoping the conductor was blind and wouldn't find him. But the conductor felt him. I tried to talk German out of it, Uncle Jorah lamented, but he wouldn't listen. I stood in the vestibule and watched. When the conductor grabbed him, that crunch of skull, it was horrific. After that, I ran through 20 cars. Couldn't calm down. I still get the chills. Uncle Jorah fell silent, and I didn't know what to say either. I tried to piece together some coherent picture of what was happening to me. It wasn't easy. My brain couldn't wrap itself around a train without a beginning. Couldn't grasp how I'd slipped into another world, or what to do about any of it. You hungry? Uncle Jorah asked in a fatherly way. His question yanked me out of my mental chaos, and I realized I was starving. A little, I admitted. Uncle Jorah pulled a duffel from under the bench and started taking out bundles. Here's chicken in foil, bread, tomatoes, a cucumber, 1.5 liters of soda, he listed. Where'd you get food? I asked, surprised. You've been here a while. That's another odd thing about this train, he said, unwrapping the chicken. As we move through the cars, we find all kinds of bags with food and water. They look like someone just stepped off at their stop and forgot their stuff. Where the bags actually come from, we don't know. Feels like something doesn't want us to starve. Are there other passengers besides us? I asked around a mouthful of chicken. Yeah, Leica and Sarioga, but they went far ahead. Leica once found a note, claiming there's a portal somewhere on the train that leads back to our world. The unknown passenger explained that the portal keeps moving forward through the cars, somehow synced with the conductor, always 1,000 cars ahead of him. So they went looking. They think they'll find a way out, Uncle Jorah said, slicing tomatoes and bread. I think there is no portal, so I'm in no rush. A huge moon hung in the sky outside, washing the endless taiga with a pale ashen light. The wheels, like the hooves of some mythic horse, beat a rhythm on the rails. 2 men, in a half-lit empty car of a strange train with no beginning, ate chicken as it hurtled through a world no one understood. You couldn't imagine a more mystical scene, I thought, crunching on a cucumber. It's time to move, Uncle Jorah said, checking his watch. The conductor will be here soon. By the way, you never introduced yourself. What's your name? He added. Valera. And you can use the familiar you, I said. Pleasure, he groaned as he stood. Come on, Valera. Let's clear out before the conductor shows up. Uncle Zora picked up his bag, and we set off through the empty cars, putting distance between us and the conductor. Count the cars, he told me. I'll count too. We'll compare. I started ticking off fingers with each car we passed. We'd gone through 7 when, at the door to the 8th, Uncle Zora stopped short and raised a hand. I got the message and froze. A second later, he pointed into the dim car ahead. I squinted and saw a man lying on the floor between the rows of seats, feet toward us, something white clenched in his right hand. He didn't move. The train just swayed him side to side. From time to time, Uncle Zora whispered, the train serves up a surprise car. The surprises vary, but they're usually deadly, as if some vicious experimenter were running dangerous trials on us. In those moments, you have to be very careful. What do we do? I whispered. You stay here. I'll have a look, he ordered softly. He set his bag down, eased the doors apart just enough to slip through sideways, and crept toward the figure on the floor. I hung back, ready to jump in. He crouched by the body, touched it, then jerked back and sat on a seat. He beckoned me over. I approached carefully. It's Sarioga, Uncle Zora said sadly. He's dead. He bent down and pulled a slip of paper from Sarioga's hand. It was a note from Leka. I still don't understand what happened, Leka had written. Sarioga said he needed to take a leak and stayed in the vestibule, and I went to the next car. I waited about 10 minutes, then went back for him. He was gone. I checked 3 cars back empty. I figured he went back to you and stopped looking. I headed forward to find the portal, and 14 cars later, I see him on the floor. Dead. No signs of violence. How did he get ahead of me? Almost 10 cars. Uncle Zora, be careful. Damn. What do we do with the body? There's nowhere to bury him. And it feels wrong to just leave him. Maybe we burn him? Cremation is like a funeral, I suggested. Let the whole car go up. What have we got to lose? Absolutely not. Don't you dare light anything, Uncle Zora burst out. We already tried. We thought we'd torch a car right in front of the conductor, and if he burned, maybe we'd get back to our world. No dice. As soon as we started a fire with the seats, a firefighter appeared, materialized in a vestibule on the conductor's side. A monster, no better than the conductor, only this one could see, and wore a helmet. He had a pike pole and an extinguisher, too. We nearly bricked our pants when we saw him. He doused the flames with the extinguisher, leveled the pike pole, and charged us, roaring like a wounded bull, kicking doors off their hinges between cars. I don't know how many cars we ran. When I collapsed, I thought I was done for, but he vanished as suddenly as he'd appeared. Bottom line, don't play with fire here. Yeah, I can see there's not much room for fun, I said, impressed. Whose bag is that? I pointed at a dark backpack under a seat. No idea. Let's see, Uncle Zora suggested. I set the pack on a seat, unzipped it, and we checked the contents. A few hard-boiled eggs, some sliced dry-cured sausage, a little bread, a couple of apples, and a thermos of hot tea. In an inner pocket, we found some cash, about 2,000 rubles, some receipts, keys, and a ticket for this train. The moment I saw the ticket, I got an idea. Uncle Zora, the conductor wants tickets. Let's have him check this one. Then we'll end up on the far side of him and maybe get back to our world. First, we've got only one ticket, Uncle Zora reasoned. Second, it's risky. If the conductor doesn't like something, he'll swallow you without asking your last name. We ought to experiment with it from a safe distance. We both looked at Sarioga's body. When the conductor finds him on the floor with no ticket, he'll eat him anyway. And we can't hide him. Let's sit Seryoga up and put the ticket in his hand, then watch what the conductor does, Uncle Zhora proposed. I nodded silently. That's what we did. We posed Seryoga like a sleeping passenger, sat by the window facing the tail of the train, right at the car's entrance. We placed the ticket we'd found in his right hand. Then we moved to the front of the car and waited for the conductor, passing the time in low conversation. Uncle Zhora, why was all the food in the pack fresh and the tea still hot? I asked. It's always like that on this train. Every stash we've found looks like a scatterbrained passenger just forgot it, he answered. Great. I feel like a lab rabbit. Someone's experimenting on us and feeding us so we don't starve, I muttered. If only we knew which evil genius is tormenting us. There's no genius, Uncle Zhora said. People know little enough about the world they live in, never mind the laws of neighboring worlds. You have to adapt, he went on. Try to understand what's going on. Learn the rules of the game, so to speak. Then maybe we'll find a way out. Time passed. We heard doors clapping between cars and knew the conductor had reached ours. Being in the same car with him was deeply unpleasant and scary. So we stepped into the vestibule and watched through the glass of the closed doors. It felt safer that way. We saw him squeeze into the car, muttering, and begin methodically feeling the space. He ran a giant hand along the seat where Seryoga sat and found the ticket in his hand. He carefully took it, then pulled out some device from his bag and fed the ticket into it. A red light came on, and a long, nasty tone blared. The conductor started bellowing, grabbed poor Seryoga, and bit off his head in one gulp. I puked right onto the glass we were watching through. Uncle Zhora grabbed my hand and hustled me away. Experiment failed. The conductor's device doesn't accept tickets from our world. Despair and disappointment washed over us. Fear goaded us to get farther away. At first we moved fast, not counting cars. Then fatigue set in, and we took a break. The cars varied. Some were old, grimy, rusty, reeking places you didn't want to linger. Others looked relatively new and clean. We sat down in one of the nicer ones. "Let's have some tea, Valera," Uncle Zhora wheezed, winded, taking the thermos from his bag along with a couple of candies. The thermos lid doubled as a cup, with a plastic bowl nested inside two-person service. I drank from the lid. Uncle Zhora used the bowl. "Uncle Zhora, you mentioned law enforcers. Like a local police?" I asked. "Something like that," he said, sipping. "I've never seen them myself," Leka told me. He got here before I did. There were 3 of them for a while. Leka, Seryoga, and Stasik. A semi-homeless guy. Stasik had been here long before the other 2. Supposedly he liked it. No home in our world, but here he had free food and a roof over his head. He even managed to brew hooch from fruit and candy he found in bags. One day they found a note. It said you could summon a patrol to the car if you pressed the call button and, ignoring the noise, shouted, "We've got an emergency in our car." It also said you really shouldn't do it, because 2 officers would appear and drag off the first one they could grab, and you'd never see him again. "Don't resist," the note said. "Their strength is inhuman, and their looks will make your knees buckle." When Leka read it out loud, Stasik started laughing and showing off. Said it was all nonsense, that he'd pressed those buttons 100 times and never saw anyone. He was pretty lit on his hooch. He started shouting his mouth off about how he'd seen all the cops in their coffins and could smear them all with one hand, that sort of thing. Then, according to Leka, Stasik ran to the button, pushed it, and yelled, "We've got an emergency in our car!" The speakers shrieked and hissed. Stasek didn't care. He kept bellowing, "We've got an emergency in our car!" Leka said he and Saryoga were about to yank him away when something happened, and they froze where they stood. Two of them crashed in from the vestibule, one as big as the ceiling, the other half his height. Faces a mess of scars. Both wore tatters of uniforms, light blue shirts, frayed and brown-stained. The big one had hands so huge they'd split the sleeves. Both barefoot, but with epaulets. They growled like bears. Their eyes were red and crazed. They grabbed Stasek and started working him over, knocked out all his teeth, beat his face bloody. Then they twisted his arms, slapped on cuffs, and dragged him away by the legs the way they'd come. Leka said he and Saryoga were petrified by what they'd seen. For a long time they were afraid to go on, but the conductor pushed from behind, and they had to move. They never saw Stasek again, and his bloody trail ended in the passage between the cars, as if all three just dissolved there. Serious business, I muttered, at a loss. Then we noticed the train was slowing. "Looks like a station," Uncle Jorah said, peering out. "Maybe another passenger." "Don't they take someone on at every station?" I asked, surprised. "No," he said. "Sometimes the train waits a long time, as if hunting its prey. Doesn't always manage to snatch another poor soul from our world." "What if we get off and talk the passenger out of boarding?" I blurted. "Naive, Valera. You won't see the passenger. Remember, we're in different realities. He's on the platform in our world, and we're, well, who knows where." The train slunk up to the station and came to a full stop. The doors slid open with a hiss and a clank. Something unintelligible grunted from the speakers. The station was a 2-story building with dark, broken windows. The empty night platform was lit by a couple of dim lamps. In the building's wall, one barred, unbroken little window glowed faintly, and above it were letters that read, "K-si." The rest of the word had either fallen off or was never there, but it was clearly a ticket office. The desolate, half-lit atmosphere was downright uncanny. "Can I scout a bit?" I asked. "You can. But the second you hear a voice over the speakers, get back on the train. Otherwise, you'll be stuck here forever." "What's inside the building?" I persisted. "Don't go in," Uncle Jorah warned. "Things live in there you don't want to meet. And if you see anyone outside, run flat out for the car. As a rule, they don't come in here. Seems like they're not allowed. But if they catch you outside, they'll eat you." Way to boost my confidence, Uncle Jorah. Now, I'm scared to get off. "You should be," he said meaningfully. "I never get off." A perpetual, freezing night hung over this strange world. Still, I decided to step off. I had a plan. I would try to buy tickets at the office. I felt the savage cold as soon as I set foot on the platform. Oddly, there was no snow anywhere. I only noticed that now. I looked both ways and saw cars stretching into forested darkness on either side. Is it really endless? I thought, moving slowly toward the office. The glass in the window was cloudy, but behind the dusty pane, I could make out the silhouette of a ticket clerk. I couldn't see details, nor did I want to. A rusty tray stuck out at the bottom of the window. I dropped a 500-ruble note into it, pushed it inside, and said, 2 tickets, holding up 2 fingers in case they couldn't hear me. The silhouette busied itself, and suddenly the tray slammed back out, my 500 flying, and a garbled roar and some kind of cursing burst from behind the window. I jumped. My heart was hammering. I glanced at the building's doorway. The thought that something inside might have heard the racket and come out gave me the creeps. But nothing happened. I gingerly scooped up my bill and turned toward the train. Something moved. I crept closer and saw a figure under the car, really just the back half of one. Someone big, in a filthy orange vest, was on hands and knees, with his head under the car, grumbling, metal tapping, and clanking, apparently fixing something underneath. A hammer and some other tool lay on the platform beside him. Must be a local mechanic. How has he not noticed me? I thought, horrified. I wanted to dive back into the car before he spotted me. Then I saw a red ID booklet sticking out of his back pocket. Railway worker's ID flashed through my head, and the plan clicked. I snuck up from behind, yanked the ID from his pocket, and bolted for the doors. His reaction was feral. He roared and lunged after me. I lost precious seconds scrambling up the metal steps. In the vestibule, I felt him gaining on me. I slid the door to the left. Uncle Jorah was waiting in that car and sprinted toward the tail. The doors hadn't even closed behind me when I felt the mechanic grab my leg. I hit the floor, but managed to clamp onto the leg of the nearest seat. The mechanic, still on the platform, reached me with arms impossibly long, even though I was inside. Uncle Jorah, face stricken, dove to help, grabbing my clothes and hauling with all his might. We were pinned. From the tail end, the conductor was inexorably approaching, while ahead the mechanic's arm, nothing short of hydraulic, was dragging me out. The strength wasn't on our side, and both of us understood he'd pop me out of that car like a cork. We braced with everything we had. Uncle Jorah was yelling at me to hold on, but my numb fingers were prying loose one by one. We stared at each other in horror and said our goodbyes without words. Suddenly, I remembered the emergency call button. With a superhuman effort, I reached it and, slamming it, bellowed, "Emergency in our car! Emergency in our car!" Then the real nightmare began. A two-man patrol of mutants burst into the vestibule, and the first thing within reach was the mechanic halfway inside the train, hauling me by the leg. A second later came the crunch of breaking bones and the mechanic's wild scream. A bloodbath erupted in the vestibule. The car bucked like a herd of elephants was dancing on its roof. Those two goblins hauled the mechanic fully inside and took him apart. The roaring and shrieking were so loud they made my ears ring. Panting, Uncle Jorah dragged me toward the middle of the car. I looked back. The mechanic's torn-off arm was still clamped around my leg, leaving a bloody trail as I scooted. The rest of him was flying around the vestibule under the patrol's blows, smashing the car's door windows. We stared, petrified. Then the mechanic went limp, and through the broken glass we saw the two of them briskly drag his remains into the passage between the cars. Spent, we collapsed onto the floor. Another muddled but expressive announcement crackled from the speakers. The train hissed the doors shut and resumed its endless voyage across that strange world. "Valera, what the hell did you grab that mutant for?" Uncle Jorah rasped, furious but out of breath. I pulled the freshly stolen ID from my pocket and handed it to him. "And what good is that?" he said, still clutching his chest. "I'll present it at the ticket office and get us a couple of local tickets so we can bail out of this damned train," I puffed. "Interesting theory, partner," he sneered. "Nearly cost you your head." "Come on, Uncle Jorah, it worked out." "Next station, I'll get us tickets." "I'm afraid to picture how that's going to look," he said, handing back the booklet. Grinning, I opened the ID to examine my trophy. It was as cartoonish as everything else in this world. The neat lines of text were a jumble of Cyrillic and Latin letters, uppercase and lowercase at random. You couldn't read any of it, but it all looked official, even a photo with a big round ink stamp. The shriveled mug in the photo was grotesque. The eyes, one higher than the other, showed a total absence of intellect. A lipless mouth bared big yellow horse teeth. 2 slits for a nose and enormous ears completed the picture. "Uncle Zora, think the clerk will notice the photo isn't me?" "Please, you're twins." "Spitting image," he croaked, laughing. After that joke, we couldn't stand up. The adrenaline drained from our veins, and we were hit by a hysterical fit. We laughed till our sides hurt and tears ran. When we finally calmed down, I tried to free my leg from the mechanic's death grip. Easier said than done. His fingers had a literal death lock. The arm had been ripped clean from the shoulder, over 6 feet long, and heavy. It hung from my leg like a kettlebell. Some spasm must have clenched those giant fingers into iron, and the dead hand wouldn't let go. "Cut the tendons," Uncle Zora said, handing me his knife. I took it and sliced into the back of the dead hand. One by one, the fingers slackened, and at last I got my leg free. In the half-dark of the car, the huge arm lay on the floor, its hand swaying like a giant spider in time with the train. We wanted nothing more than to get out of that car. It felt like the hand might spring to life and clamp someone's throat. "Let's get out of here, Uncle Zora," I said. "I'd rather not wait for the conductor." He silently took his bag, and we edged around the arm and headed for the vestibule. We flung the doors open and froze. The vestibule was awash in the mechanic's blood, dripping from the ceiling, running down the walls. Teeth lay scattered on the floor, bloody gobbets here and there, and a huge eyeball. Glass fragments crunched underfoot. Dents pocked the walls and doors where blows had landed. The sight chilled us to the bone. We were scared to go on. What if those two were waiting in the next vestibule? Uncle Zora stepped into the connection between cars. The bloody trail ended there. He cracked open the next car's vestibule door, empty. The car itself, nothing suspicious. "Valera, we need to make it 10 or 12 cars to eat and grab some sleep," Uncle Zora said without stopping. "Sure," I said, limping. My leg ached after the mechanic's iron grip, but I could bear it if it meant getting away from that charnel house and the oncoming conductor. 3 cars on, we found a big plastic bag and a woman's purse. The bag held pricey sausage, cognac, a liter and a half of cola, fruit, chocolate, and a can of olives. The pink purse lay nearby with a rhinestone logo of 3 letters. N. GA. Inside was a standard ladies' kit. Nothing interesting except a stun gun, which we took. Uncle Zora transferred the food into his bag, and we moved on. 9 cars later, we made camp, took out the provisions, and treated ourselves to a little cognac. Soon fatigue caught up, and we dozed. I woke to Uncle Zora shaking my shoulder. "What is it?" I jerked upright. "The train stopped," he said. "Another station." I looked out. In the dark, an empty platform with a concrete ticket booth beside a rusty canopy and a couple of broken benches. The whole nightscape was lit by a barely living lamp on a pole. The booth's little window glimmered faintly, as if a candle burned inside, or a bad electrical contact made the bulb flicker. I stepped onto the platform and drew in the icy air. Uncle Zora stood in the vestibule watching. "Uncle Zora, why isn't there any snow?" I asked quietly. "It's winter." "No idea," he said. "As long as I've been here, I've never seen snow." I looked around, then walked slowly to the window, set the stolen mechanic's ID and my 500 in the rusty tray, and slid it in. Loudly, I said, "2 tickets," showing 2 fingers in the window. A sizable shadow stirred behind the cloudy glass. There was some mumbling, and a few seconds later, the tray popped out. In it lay the ID, my bill, and 2 tickets on heavy cardstock. At that moment, a garbled announcement sounded over the loudspeaker, and I realized the train was about to move. I grabbed everything from the tray and sprinted for the car, leaping into the vestibule just as the doors closed. "Well?" Uncle Zora said, all impatience. I handed him a ticket. "No way," he breathed, cradling the little card with its stamp and string of random letters. "They're local tickets." "Yep. This one's yours, and this one's mine." I showed mine. Free, apparently. 1 ID was enough. The train gathered speed while we went back into the car and sat on a bench. "Uncle Zora, let's wait for the conductor. I'll stand in the aisle and present my ticket. You stand a few steps behind me, ready to sprint. If the mutant doesn't like the ticket, we'll have a chance to run. If it's fine, you'll show yours next." "Good plan," Uncle Zora said with a nod. "It's a pity about Leka," I added. "Is he stuck here forever? We can't catch him anyway." "He's far ahead," Uncle Zora said. "He and Seryoga chose their path. Seryoga died. I'm not sure Leka's even alive now. We've been given a chance, risky, but we have to try." "Uncle Zora, what happens behind the conductor? Why do the cars vanish?" "I don't really know. Maybe each car turns into some kind of portal you can step through to our world." We didn't want to leave that car. It felt lucky, like our tickets would prove good only here. After a while, we heard the door in the vestibule thump and saw the conductor wedge himself into the car. His incoherent muttering stirred a quiet terror. Every instinct said, "Run." I forced myself to stay put, took the stun gun from Uncle Zora just in case, and walked to the middle of the car. I held my ticket out and stood ready to bolt if things went south. Uncle Zora stood about 5 paces behind me, equally ready to run. We knew he wouldn't chase us, but his inhuman reflexes and those long shovel hands kept us on edge. Feeling his way, he moved toward me. In his mutterings, I heard the phrase, "Show your ticket," more than once. Finally, he found my outstretched hand, took the ticket gently, and rummaged in his bag for the validator. My heart was jackhammering. I clenched the stun gun and prepared to spring back if that hateful buzzer started wailing. He pulled out his strange machine and fed my ticket into it. The machine purred, chirped once, and a green light came on. The conductor took the ticket back out and, muttering, "All right," handed it to me. Now neatly punched, I took it and sat. The conductor kept feeling his way down the car toward Uncle Zora. Seeing the tickets work, Uncle Zora relaxed a little and sat as well. I watched over the mutant's shoulder, afraid to breathe, not to jinx it. Uncle Zora passed inspection too, and the conductor squeezed into the vestibule, felt around, and pushed into the next car. For a while we sat there, stunned, unsure what to do. Our car didn't disappear. Nothing changed. The train kept running through the night taiga. Then Uncle Zora got up and walked over. He looked at me. I looked at him. "What now?" I whispered for some reason. "I don't know," he said. "Let's check the previous car. Maybe that one vanished," I suggested. We went to see. When we stepped into the neighboring car's vestibule and saw it hadn't vanished, we froze in shock. The lights were on, and there were people. A second wave of paralysis washed over us. We stood rooted in the vestibule, staring through the glass at the passengers. There weren't many. A young couple with a little girl darting up and down the aisle. A serious man with a briefcase. 2 grandmas chatting animatedly. I don't know how long we stood there. Uncle Zora was the first to come around. "Whoa," he drawled. "We're back? Why didn't our car disappear?" You could see questions swarming in his head. His face showed a kind of distrust, as if he suspected another experiment, and the passengers were fake. Then he turned slowly and went back to our car, opened the vestibule doors, and we saw lights there too, and passengers riding along. A minute ago it had been a dark, empty car on a ghost train. Now people, riding like always. "Valera, our car did disappear. It's been replaced," he said. "Exactly," I answered. "Turns out this is how it works. You have to step into another car to get back to our world." Uncle Zora stepped into the car, and I followed. We walked slowly down the aisle, taking in the faces, then into the next car, and the next. We must have looked ridiculous. Eyes bugging, and everyone probably took us for a couple of deranged bums. But bit by bit it sank in. We had escaped the nightmare world of the ghost train. The people around us were real. Everyone was going about their business. Uncle Zora turned to me, tears in his eyes. That dark world had nearly cost him the belief he could ever return. "We did it," he said, and hugged me like a father. I hugged him back. A wave of joy washed over us. Our legs went wobbly, and we dropped into a seat. Our faces were glowing. The train began to slow, and a woman's voice announced the stop as the 666th kilometer, with the next station, Liski. We didn't know where we were yet. Each of us had boarded the ghost train from different cities, but it seemed you could only get off here, at the 666th kilometer platform. This was the return portal. It was still dark outside, but this was clearly a different train. And now we knew where we were going. We were back in our world.